Hello everyone, thank you for joining us. Okay, we have about 81 people in the room. I know we are expecting some more, but we've got quite a full packed agenda today, so we will make a start. The presentation is going to be recorded, so it will be available for anybody who wishes to share it more widely after the event, or if anybody does miss it, then the presentation will be available, so do not panic. Okay, so welcome, hello, my name is Ali Garber. I'm the Service Manager for Education Relationships and Early Years at Somerset. I am going to be chairing tonight, so it'll be moving on the slides and kind of in between. There's a whole host of us going on in the background, checking the chat and making sure everything's working okay. Our presentation tonight, we have Jane Birchall joining us doing an update around Ofsted. Nikki and Joe are talking curriculum and literacy. We've got a safeguarding presentation with Beth and Catherine. We've got an education places update with Sarah. There's an early years and SEND update with Rebecca. There's public health projects. We've got Gemma and Claire who are going to be joining us for that. And then if there's time at the end, there are a couple of take heart slides just on the end, which we've tried to sneak in to see if we can get a little bit extra on the agenda. So we will see if we can manage to get all of that in. This is a Teams live event, which means that we can't see you or hear you. So if you wish to interact with us, there is a Q&A button at the top of your screen. If you click on that, then it will allow you to post a question that we can then answer in the chat. They're all moderated and everything, so if yours doesn't appear, it might just be that lots of people ask the same question, so we've just chosen to do it once. Obviously try and keep the questions relevant to what we're doing tonight. I mean, you know, as much as I might like to talk about what we had for dinner, it's probably not going to be a great question for us to be able to answer. So try and keep it relevant to the topics discussed, and we will do our best to answer all of your questions. Okay, I am going to hand you over to Jane, who is going to be talking to you about updates from Ofsted. So I'm just going to switch across to her. Send it live. Sam, I can't shift over Jane.
It's got live in front of my name, so lovely. I'm really hopeful that everybody on the call can hear me. So welcome everybody. It's great to see the attendees are going up by the minute. We're almost hitting 100, so it's great to have so many people with us this evening. Alison's asked me to come along for the first slot, and I will only be with you for this very first slot, and then I will be leaving you just to give you a little bit of an update on some key things. So I'm going to do a little bit of an update on some recent changes to the EYFS, just to make sure everybody's aware and familiar with those changes, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about some changes to our approach in the organisation in Ofsted, and some of our changes to inspection practice. For those of you, I may have met some of you in previously. I've done lots of presentations in different guises. I've been in person to some of your conferences. I do presentations for the Ofsted Big Conversation that you might attend. But for those of you who don't know me, my name is Jane Birchall, and I am the Senior HMI for Early Years for the South West region. So Somerset is one of my local authorities. What does that mean? It means I'm responsible for ensuring all of the registration, inspection and regulatory work in the early years remit is delivered in the South West region. So as I say, I'm only going to be with you for this first slot. So if you do have any questions, please pop them in the question and answer. I'm trying to keep an eye on that as well as they come through. So I'll do my best to either answer them as they come through, or I've got a little bit of time at the very end for questions, and I can mop any questions up at that point. But please do take the opportunity to ask me any questions while I'm with you, because I will be leaving shortly after my presentation. Okay, Alison, if we can go to the first slide, that would be fantastic. Okay, so I just wanted to talk a little bit about some of the most recent changes to the statutory framework for the early years foundation stage. So first thing to say about the statutory framework, which sometimes is a bit of a misconception, is that the statutory framework isn't something that we design, devise and publish. It's a document that the DFE publish. They write that. They determine the requirements that early years providers have to meet, and they are the people that put that together and publish that. As a regulator, we have the responsibility for ensuring that early years providers are meeting the requirements. We do that through our registration, inspection and our regulatory work. So we inspect against the statutory framework, and we do so in line with all of the principles of the framework itself. Now, you might be aware that very recently in January, there were some updates to the statutory framework, and the biggest thing that happened in January was the fact that there are now two versions of the statutory framework. There's a version for childminders, and then there's a separate version for group and school-based providers. And the reason that decision was taken was to bring absolute clarity to the framework, so that it's very clear now what requirements childminders have to meet and what requirements group and school-based providers have to meet. So that was the rationale for separating them out, just to bring that absolute clarity to the difference in terms of the type of provider and the requirements. This slide just depicts some of the changes, some of the key changes that you need to be aware of. So one of the things was that they've changed now is that they've removed the requirement for level 3 practitioners to have a level 2 maths qualification in order for them to count within your staff child ratios. And then also there was a bit of a change to, is everything okay?
Dean, I'm on a conference call, love.
Sorry, I don't know if somebody
Sarah, you need to turn your microphone on, please.
Brilliant, thank you, Sarah, fantastic. Okay, so then there was a change to the way in which you're able to now use students or apprentices. If you think that they are competent and responsible to be part of your ratios, you can do that at the level below their level of study. But obviously, you do need to be confident that they have the competency and the responsibility to act in that capacity. There's also been a new document created that you might want to become familiar with, which sets out all of the early years qualification requirements and the standards. And then there is a change to the requirement around supporting children who maybe don't speak English as their first language. There's been a change to the wording for that requirement, and it's now that settings may provide opportunities for children to develop and use their home language in their play and learning. And previously, in the previous iteration of the framework, it was a must, it was an absolute requirement. So they've changed that requirement very slightly. If you're a childminder and you employ assistants, now you can use your assistants in the role of key person, again, as long as you're confident that they are competent and able to carry out that role. And then in terms of childminder registration, they've now removed the requirement for childminders to complete training prior to registration. So there's no requirement now for somebody to have undertaken training, but still important to remember that through the registration process, applicants are still required to demonstrate that they have got sufficient knowledge of the early years foundation stage in order for them to be suitable for registration. Okay, so they're the changes to some of the key changes to the EYFS. If you've not familiarised yourself with the EYFS since January, it's probably a really good idea after today's call maybe to go online to download the most recent version. So you've got that whether you're a childminder or you're a group provider or you work in a school. Important that you've got the right statutory framework for the type of provider you are. So I suggest that people do take the opportunity to go online and have a look at that. Okay, just going to pause for a second just to make sure there are no questions coming in before I move on, because I'm going to move on now to talk about inspection practice. Okay, I think we can move on. Ali, thank you. Okay, so you're probably very familiar with the fact that in January, on the 19th of January, as an organisation, we responded in full to the report following the inquest into the very sad and tragic death of head teacher Ruth Perry. We were asked to respond to the report from the inquest, and we did so. And a lot of the actions that we've taken that are set out in our response are things that we'd already put in place to address each of the coroner's concerns, but we also obviously included in that report what we propose to do next. And I just thought it would be a good opportunity just to run through some of those with you this evening, so you know what to expect if we come out to inspect you or we have contact with you in another way. Now, alongside our response to the inquest, we also simultaneously published updates to our early years inspection handbook. So again, if you've not had a look at an inspection handbook for a little while, it'll be a good opportunity after today's meeting to go online and to find the most up-to-date version. As I say, it was published on the 19th of January. Now, we have made some changes to some of the things that we do, and I'm going to talk you through those in a minute. But fundamentally, I think it's important to say that our overall inspection methodology remains the same. And as I've already said, we inspect in line with the principles and the requirements of the early years foundation stage, and we continue to do that, and we continue to gather our evidence in a very similar way, using a number of inspection activities that enable us to get a range of evidence to help us understand what it's like to be a child attending your particular setting. But some of the changes, I'll just run through some of those changes now. So the changes make clear our expectations around inspector conduct during an inspection. And one of the things we've made explicit, both in our response and in the inspection handbook, is what inspectors will do during an inspection, or in fact during any contact and visit they might have with an early years provider, to ensure the well-being of yourselves as providers, leaders of your settings, staff that may be present during those visits, so during and after inspections, but also other visits that we might conduct. So one of the things that we are now going to do is that we are going to speak to you at the beginning of an inspection, or when we make a notification call, to talk about whether or not you'd like to provide us the details of someone who would be able to support you as the provider, or as support the leader or the manager of the setting, should that be needed during the inspection. It'll be up to you as the provider to choose who you would like to act in that capacity for you. So, you know, there might be a range of people that you can call upon. So it's up to you to make that choice. And you can also choose, if you wish to, not to provide the details. But if you do make the decision not to provide details to us, and subsequently later on in that inspection or later on in that visit you become distressed or upset in any way, we will work with you while we're still on the premises to ensure that you do have the support you need. So that there are a number of things we might do. Well, you know, we might again speak to you about maybe identifying somebody who we can call for you, or you can call, who can come along and give you that support. But it also might be that we might make contact with the local authority whose role it is to offer support, advice and guidance to settings. And I think really important to say to everybody this evening, just to be assured that should you provide us with information about a contact person, any information you provide will only be used for the purpose of accessing support should you need it. It's not going to be used in any other purpose, and it will be destroyed after the inspection. It's just so we have, should we need it, information about someone we can call on your behalf, or encourage you to call should you need it. Now, the handbook now makes clear about what you can do with information about the outcome of an inspection. So while the outcome of an inspection should still remain confidential, it shouldn't prevent you from discussing that with others of your choosing in confidence with them, as long as you can be certain that the information is not made public or shared with parents at that early stage. Obviously, once an inspection report has been through all of the processes and it gets to publication, then obviously there's an expectation you'll share it with parents. But in these early days, it's about you finding somebody that, if you wanted to, you could talk to about the outcome of that inspection in confidence, confident that you know it's not going to go any further. So who might that be? Well, it could be a range of people. It could be colleagues. It could be family members. It could be a wider support network group that you might have, which could include the early years advisors in the local authority. It could be a medical advisor that you may have contact with. So there are a whole range of people that you might choose to share that information with in order to get any support that you might need. Now, the changes also include in all inspectors undertaking mental health awareness training, and you might have heard about some of the training that has already been delivered. So every inspector, regardless of the remit, and we inspect across a number of remits in Ofsted, every inspector is required to undertake mental health awareness training, and the purpose of that is to ensure that they are equipped to recognise signs of stress and anxiety in somebody, and they know how to respond to that. Now, we've also, on top of that, we've also updated our complaints policies. Now, the updates we've made actually follow a consultation that we carried out in the summer of 2023, because we were already consulting on our complaints policies and procedures during that time. So we've made some changes following that consultation. One of the changes we've made is that we'll now provide leaders and providers with a telephone number that they can call should they have any concern about their inspection that you've not been able to resolve at the time. So you'll get through, it's a dedicated telephone line, you'll get through to somebody who will take some details from you, and within a very short space of time, usually around about less than an hour, a senior manager from the organisation will ring you back in order to talk to you about your concerns. Now, you can use that telephone number in one of two ways. You can use it during the inspection. If you have concerns during the inspection, you've not been able to resolve those concerns directly with the inspector, we would always encourage you to speak to the inspector if you've got concerns during an inspection. But if you've not been able to resolve them and you want to speak to somebody during the inspection, you'll be able to use that telephone line at that time. And should you do so, the senior managers, I said, will ring you back. They'll talk through what the issues are that you're finding. They'll talk to you about ways in which you might be able to navigate your way through those issues. But equally, they'll also want to speak to the inspector once they've spoken to you, so that they can share with the inspector the concerns that you have, and they can also support the inspector to make sure that they're able to navigate and support you to be able to bring that inspection to a conclusion. But you can also use that telephone number following an inspection. So usually within 24 hours, we're asking people that if there's anything that you want us to consider, it's not about providing us with additional evidence, but there might be something on reflection you want to talk in a little bit more detail about, and you'd like us to take account of that information as part of the quality assurance process, then you can use that telephone number again. A senior manager will ring you back and they'll just talk through with you what the issues are, what the information is that you want to share with us at that point, and then we'll make sure that that gets shared appropriately, so we can take that information into consideration during the quality assurance process. Now, we've also very recently, at the beginning of January, we've had a new chief inspector. So Sir Martin Oliver is our new His Majesty's Chief Inspector, and you may have heard him talk in the media. You may have heard some of the announcements that he's made since he's undertaken the role of Chief Inspector. One of the things he's talked at length about is his intention to carry out a really comprehensive listening exercise. So it's been called the Big Listen, and it's going to be rolled out across all of the sectors that we work in. So that's early years, schools, further education and skills, and social care. And it's going to be an opportunity for Sir Martin and us as an organisation as a whole to hear directly from parents, from leaders, from other professionals about our current approach. It's going to be, we're going to want to hear from you about the changes that we're already making, and also whether there is any more we can do to protect children, to raise standards and to improve lives, and also any more we can do in terms of our approach to inspection. The inspection frameworks, and including the inspection gradings and the outcomes. So a lot more to come on this. Probably far too early for us to start to speculate what the outcome of that consultation, that big listen will be. But I absolutely urge everybody on this call that you take the opportunity, if you wish to be involved and to share your thoughts on what you think we as an organisation could do differently. And then the last change I just wanted to share with you was the way in which we are now reporting on safeguarding. So you'll know in our inspection reports, we have a separate section on safeguarding where we make an evaluation about the effectiveness of safeguarding. So we've made some changes to that. So from the beginning of January, we introduced some standardised wording to be used in that section of the report. So if safeguarding is effective, the standard phrase will say there is an open and positive culture around safeguarding that puts children's interests first. If it's not effective, the statement will be kind of the opposite to that. So it'll be there is not an open and positive culture around safeguarding which puts children's interests first. Now, in relation to reporting more specifically on safeguarding, we will report on anything that's key in relation to safeguarding in the other sections of the report. So in that very first section, which is what is it like to attend this early years setting, and then in the next section, which is what does the early years setting do well and what does it need to do better, anything key, whether it be a strength in safeguarding or it be something that would benefit from improvement in safeguarding, will be reported in those two sections. Okay, so if we can just move on to the last slide, if that's okay. An opportunity now for any questions. So I can see there aren't any at the moment in the
there
question
are a
and
couple
answer
in the
section.
chats. Yeah, there are a couple of
Right.
Q&As.
Oh, okay, so we've got a chat as well. Apologies, everybody.
No, if you go to the Q&A and you look at the published, there are...
Right, bear with me. There are some. Apologies, I missed those because I wasn't in the published section. Right, okay.
Yeah, it's just those last two. I think all the others have been answered by the people in...
Okay.
So it's just those last two.
Right, so Sarah, you've asked, can I tell you some examples of the activities used to gather evidence? Absolutely. So I'm sure these will be very familiar to everybody. So one of the very first things we'll do, an inspector will do when they arrive at a setting, is they will undertake what we call a learning walk. Now that will look very different in different types of settings. So if you are a daycare setting, for example, that is likely to be pretty much a physical walk around the setting. What it's not is it's not a tour of the setting. So it's not about you showing the inspector how you organise your environment or where the children put their coats or where they go to the toilet. It is very much walk around the setting so you can talk to the inspector about your curriculum. So the inspector is really interested in hearing about what it is you want the children in your setting to learn and why you've chosen those things. And then they will use their other inspection activities, if you like, just to test out that hypothesis or to test out that ethos, to see whether that's happening in practice and to see what the impact of that is. If you're a childminder, we will still have that exactly the same conversation with you, but we may not do it on as a walk around your home. We may do it seated with you, maybe on the sofa or at a table, or as you're working with the children, the inspector will talk to you about what it is you want the children in your setting to learn and why you've chosen those things. And I said we'll then kind of test that out through other inspection activities. So we'll observe the interactions of you as a childminder or your assistant, or if you're a daycare setting, the staff will look at the interactions they're having with children. We will talk to your staff about the types of what it is you want the children to learn, the activities you're providing, why they've been chosen, what difference that's making. We will look at the journey some individual children have gone on in your setting. So we will track children. So we might choose a sample of children. We'll look at their journey a bit more closely. So what was things like when they came into your setting? How have you identified what those children can do? How are you identifying what they need to learn next? How are you providing for that? What difference is all of that making for those children? They're the kinds of conversations we'll be having, probably with key persons about those children. We'll meet with leaders and managers to talk about how you lead and manage the setting. We'll talk to your staff about their experience of being a member of staff in your setting. And we'll probably carry out a joint observation so that we can, alongside you as a leader, we can look at the quality of what's happening in your setting and how you as a leader are making those evaluations and supporting the improvement journey in your setting. Again, it will look different for different types of providers. So if you're a daycare provider, you can choose an activity perhaps or a time of the day that you will then sit and observe with the inspector and have a conversation with the inspector about afterwards. If you're a childminder and you have assistants, we might do a very similar activity by observing what the assistants are doing. If you're a childminder who works on their own, then what we'll probably do is observe an activity that you do with the children and then talk to you afterwards about that activity. So similar activities, but gathering the evidence in a very slightly different way. So and then we'll pull all of that information together in order for us to get that picture of what it is like for a child to attend your setting, what you're doing particularly well. Are there any areas that we think that you would benefit from developing further? And we will pull all of that information together. So Sarah, I hope that answers that question. And then I've got an anonymous question. What happens when inspectors don't care about what makes you different, or even what is actually like to be a child there, just want to tick off what they need to see and are not very nice about it? This was in December 23. We got a good but also complained about it, and Ofsted weren't interested. Well, firstly, to say I'm really sorry to hear that you didn't have a particularly positive experience at your inspection. It always saddens me to hear when providers share similar stories with me, because that isn't what our aim is. Our aim is to engage with you, and it really is important that we understand what makes you different. We understand what it's like to be a child in your setting. Yes, inspectors have got to do a number of inspection activities. They have got to check certain things, but a lot of the things that they will be looking at should be aligned to your setting and the way in which you deliver your curriculum. But just to say, I've talked about that telephone number, so that is there that you can use, particularly if you feel that you said that the inspector wasn't very nice. Again, I'm really sorry to hear that, but you can use that if you're not able to resolve any issues with the inspector at the time, you can now use that telephone number during the inspection to speak to a senior manager. And again, you've got that telephone number you can use after the inspection to talk about anything that you feel we would benefit from knowing a little bit more about, to take that into account in the quality assurance process. We do have a complaints procedure that we take. If you make a formal complaint, it goes through a very robust complaints procedure where your concerns will be looked at by somebody who has not been involved in that inspection. They're coming to that inspection completely fresh. They won't have had any involvement in that inspection, and they will be looking at the information and the evidence that's been gathered by the inspector at the time of the inspection, and how that marries up with the judgments that they've given and the report that they've written. So I'm sorry to hear that you didn't have a very positive experience, but hopefully with the introduction of maybe the new telephone lines, that might give you a little bit more confidence moving forward. Okay, any other questions, Alison? I'm not sure there are.
Yeah, there's been a couple more. Someone's asked how they share their experiences. Is there going to be an email coming out, or is there a link? I assume that's experiences of Ofsted.
Oh, I can see that now. Okay. Again, if that's about the Big Listen, there will be more information coming out about the Big Listen. So if that's about sharing, feeding into that engagement activity, there'll be more information coming out about that very shortly. If it's about experiences during the inspection or immediately after the inspection, you will be given the telephone number by the inspector either during the notification call, if it's an announced inspection. If it's an unannounced inspection or an unannounced visit, you'll be given that information when the inspector arrives. So there will be information coming out to you.
Okay. Someone said it's not easy to respond. It's not always easy to respond to inspectors during the inspection, as there is no time to reflect on what they're saying while you're also working and looking after children. Can the phone line be used to respond to the things the inspector has said, and would this change your grade?
Okay. That's the purpose of the phone line. You know, if you've just, after the inspection, if you've had a bit of reflection and then you think, well, I really would have liked to have shared this, this and this, then you've got the phone line to use. So that yes, you can absolutely use the phone line in that scenario. Would this change your grade? I can't answer that question, unfortunately, because obviously I don't know what the different scenarios are going to be, but we will be looking at the information you share alongside the evidence that's gathered at the inspection to see and we'll be considering it as a whole.
Lovely. And last question, I think, will consideration be given for whole new teams that have only been in place for a short time, or will they just see this as an excuse?
So I'm assuming that's come from Deb. So thanks for that question, Deb. I'm assuming you mean in terms if you've got a new team a new staff team in your setting. And we do know at the moment things are quite tricky out there, aren't they, for you as providers? Recruitment is a real issue, retention's a real issue. We absolutely understand that. So it's important, if you have got a new team in place, that you're talking to the inspector about that new team. You talk to the inspector about what you see as being even even in the early days, I'm sure you'll have an idea of the strengths of that team, you'll have an idea of the areas for development for that team, what you're thinking about doing in order to tackle those areas for development. So all of that's really important, because all of that shows really effective leadership and management. What the inspector will need to do is think about, well, what's it like for a child in this setting? And if you've got a whole new team, they will need to think about what's the quality of provision like for these children at this moment in time. But they will talk that all through with you, particularly around what you know about that new team, what you're doing in order to induct that team and develop them and move your team forward. So all of that will be discussed with you. So I hope that answers the question, Deb.
Thank you ever so much, Jane. That is really wonderful. Thank you for joining us this evening. It's been lovely having you here, and thank you for answering those questions for us.
No problem. I hope everybody enjoys the rest of their evening. Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody.
Okay, I'm handing over, and I am hoping, oh look, Nikki's put her camera on, so I'm going to assume it's Nikki next.
Thanks, Alison. That was really interesting from Ofsted. That will keep us all up to date. So now we are going to update you on the training survey. So could you go to the next slide, please, Alison? Or was that me? Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. So we sent out a training survey on the back of the 3% survey you had previously. We sent it out on the 25th of January. It was included in the February's news bulletin and on social media. And the deadline was the 16th of February. So it's given us time to look at the results and pull some charts and different things together. We had 209 responses. So thank you to all those who responded. That was brilliant. And we are now using this training survey and the results of the training survey to plan our training for the coming year. So from 24 April to 25 March 25. As you can see, the chart there shows the types of provision we had that replied, which was lovely. And again, childminders and PVI sectors, we had, you know, a quarter from schools. So again, like I said, thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Next slide. Now, I'm not going to go through all of these, but this was the training that you were interested in. And, you know, it was very, when I was listening to Jane, I thought, oh, yes, overview of the revised EYFS. This is the top one that you came out with. So we are going to put some bite-sized training together. There will be one for childminders. There'll be one for all early years providers and schools. And it will be a bite-size, which is a webinar type training. It will be available on our YouTube channel, and there's more information to follow on that. The next one was environment, indoors and outdoors. We have done virtual training a couple of weeks ago, and there will be a face-to-face training in May. And the other one that came out, the third one, was self-evaluation. So about how you look at the quality, and we will talk about the evidence that you can provide for Ofsted. So, you know, we are taking this on board. I'm going to meet with Joe very soon. We haven't set a date in, but we've got a brief training planner, and we're going to then put dates and what it will be. So will it be face-to-face? Will it be virtual? All those sorts of things. So, you know, and again, when it's all available, Somerset Training, they've got a new portal, which is very interesting. You have a button for curriculum. You will have a button for early years. They're changing that now, which you just click on that and it will bring all the trainings that are available for you as long as they've been posted. Next slide. And then we asked you what other training you would like. And this is some of them I've pulled together. So in the orange box, this is what you asked for. And again, we are already looking at those. We've already got quality interaction and we've delivered that in the past. Phonics, Joe has already written a bite-sized webinar on letters and sounds. Parental relationships will link to quality interaction. Risky play, it is something we've always been interested in, and we will again maybe pull something together as a bite-sized webinar just to think about what you have to consider. But we are all for risky play. Helicopter stories, unfortunately, this is a program, this is a literacy program designed by Vivian Paley, so you would have to go through her training. But we can definitely look at something about stories and how you support them and how you develop them. And I know I've got some groups that do the doodle thing on a table, and they make their own stories up, and children and draw things and different things. So we can offer something like that if you're interested. And again, all of these will come into that training diary that we're planning. We had a couple about committee training. We have offered that. We offered it in autumn and we offered it in the spring, and unfortunately we had to cancel because we only had one person book on. I will look at doing my thought around that, and I've got to talk to Sarah about this, but is offering some bite-sized training around specific aspects. So one about the treasurer, one about the, the chairperson's role, different things like that. So can we go back, Ali? Is that okay? And then in the blue was training that links to other teams within education partnerships. So I've already sent them across to Sarah, Education Places, and I sent them to Rebecca with the SEND. And Rebecca came back with some, answers. So for SEND in general, it's available from Dingley's Promise module, inclusive practice, SEND support for practitioners, also Dingley's Promise. SENCO, role of the SENCO is being delivered in April. Managing challenging behaviour, again, is Dingley's Promise. And inclusive communication is available through the SEND SES page, which I've put on there. So again, if you haven't signed up for Dingley's Promise, then if you go to the resources page, which is at the top of under the blue box, then it will take you there, and at the bottom it takes you to the Dingley's Promise link. So again, there's a lot of information out there already that we don't want to repeat, because there's no point in that. There's no point in us doing something that's already out there, a bit like child development that was asked for. But actually, the DFE have got a wonderful child development programme out there already that staff can sign up to. It's free, they do modules. So we will be liaising with other things that are out there and making sure that you get that information. Next slide. So again, we asked the question about delivery of training. And we cannot accommodate everyone's wishes. And as you can see in the first chart, the majority would like virtual training. Now, we will be delivering majority of training virtually with the webinar training, the bite-sized training, but we are going to offer some face-to-face. And an example of that is we've got a Meaningful Maths with Joe in May. That's virtual and face-to-face. So we are offering you both options, but we have to have an 8 to minimum to run a course. So again, we need to take that into support. Now, each bite-sized training, so again, we asked if you would use the bite-size, the webinars, and 91% yes, they would. Now, they last between 30 and an hour, 30 minutes and an hour. So they're not long, and you can take what you want from them. It explains what's happening at the beginning of the bite-sized training, so you could click then to the areas you need. They are great for staff meetings. They're great for inset days, individual staff training. So if you've got somebody, oh, actually, I'm not sure about the EYFS. Oh, actually, there's a bite-sized training out there. It takes 25 minutes. If you go off and have a look in the office and go and log on that, and it'll take you to that. And you could give internal certificates yourself on what they've attended. And again, it allows you to access this whenever you want. So again, that's another plus for bite-sized training. And they will be published in our via the YouTube link, which again will be coming soon. Now, they will all be up there and ready from April 2024 onwards, and we will just keep adding new ones. We'll update you through the news bulletin about what's coming up and whatever, and there's that wonderful training part of that news bulletin now, which is fantastic. It's all in one place, so you can see everything. And then I think that's my last one, next one, I think. And again, we've asked you about the timings. Now, we offer a variety of timings, and we're doing that with the expansion training and any training we want, but the majority came back as evenings. Again, I think it's easier like tonight, isn't it? We can do the provider briefings in an afternoon, but we know due to capacity and things like that, a lot of you wouldn't be able to attend. So we will continue to offer, but we have to look at actually the majority who will be attending. So we offer an early years that is aimed at the PVI sector, then that probably will be an evening. If we can do both, a bit like the next slide, Ali, because we're doing some training for the expansion, train support expansion of wraparound care in early years, we've got day courses, we've got evening courses, we've got twilight courses. The supporting quality provision 0 to 2 and 2 to 3 is of an evening. but we are doing some face-to-face on some of those. So again, Sam has kindly worked all week trying to put these up onto the SSE portal so that they'll be there and you can book from the 1st of March, which is Friday. So they will be there, they will up and running. So please book on. It'll be lovely to see you. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat, or you can email me directly. I'll put my email in the chat. I'm going to hand you over to Joe. We go to the next slide. Oh, no, sorry, it's still me. Oh, sorry, didn't have that one printed out. This is what we're putting in the spring or summer 2024. So we've got preparing for your inspection, which is next week, and we've got early years provision managed by the school. So this is different than the one above. The one above is for registered early years providers. The one underneath is just for those managed by the school, and it's not worth coming to both because there are two different courses, and we look at the early years inspection handbook, which Jane discussed, and we're going to look at the schools inspection handbook. Joe's got some meaningful maths coming to you. Again, in April, we've got an enabling environment, which is face-to-face, and I'm going to say thank you to Julia because she amended that for me. And then we've got the wraparound expansion training. So again, the preparing meaningful enabling environments are up on the SSE website. Wraparound expansion training will be there from the 1st of March. Thank you. Now I'm going to hand over to Joe.
Great to go live. Thank you, Nikki. Before I talk about the conference, there's a couple of things in the chat I just wanted to respond to. Anonymous at 7:08 p.m. said about how do we get the training survey sent to us. Unfortunately, the training survey was on the newsletter, social media, various reminders were sent out by email, and it is closed now. But if you would like to, and when I finish talking, I'll pop my email in a reply to you. If you would like to send us your thoughts on what training your provision would like, and hopefully it will input into what we plan moving forward. So I apologise, but the actual survey itself is closed now. Okay. Yeah, so I'm just going to briefly give you an overview of what's coming in May. Obviously, we would love to have continued with our possible plans to have a face-to-face all-day conference back in, well, it would have been last Saturday, actually, on Saturday the 24th of February. But as you know, various financial constraints and the pressures on providers now to, you need your time, don't you, yourselves, at weekends with families, etc., and just to take a step back from your roles. So the decision was made to offer a fully funded early years virtual conference. And as you can see, these are the dates and the times. Both sessions will be recorded and will be available to Somerset providers for a certain amount of time afterwards. So I appreciate some of you may not want to continue, at the end of the day to attend these, but they will be available for you. And booking details are not available yet. We aim to have those, I think it says it on the next slide in a minute. We aim to have those out in the next early years bulletin, so that will be the April issue, and they should be available. We'll also send out an email to all providers and social media, etc., from Monday the 25th of March. But it's not going to be that rush to get tickets. There's not going to be limits on numbers because obviously it's virtual. So the reason we've gone for the title Be Well and Do Well in the early years, Nikki talked about the 3% survey that went out before Christmas from the Education Places team, and that was about how funding that comes to the local authority is spent to support you, and there was a lot of feedback about well-being in the workplace, and not just for the children but also for yourselves. So we've gone with this theme to meet those needs that you requested. Be well and do well in the early years. Next slide, please. So I'll just give you a quick overview of the keynote speakers we're going to have at the two sessions. On the 8th of May, and some of you may be familiar with some of these ladies who do support settings across the county already. We've got Angela Graham, and she's going to be doing supporting language development through the early years. As you can see, Angela is a very well respected speech and language therapist. And she'll be providing a workshop giving insight into some of those barriers to acquiring language, as well as those strategies to overcome them. and hopefully you'll be taking away from all of these sessions. We've asked them all to make sure that you've got sort of various links and sort of toolkits to put up your sleeve to use practically in your setting, because that's what it's all about. You want to go away with things that you can actually implement and support yourselves and your children to progress. We've got Dr. Yuzan Marvel. She's going to be talking about trauma-informed practice. Unfortunately, I don't have any further information. I'm waiting for it to come through, but she's definitely agreed to deliver. And I just realised that says early years music specialist on that slide, so I didn't check that. She's not.
I think she might be a bit surprised that she's delivering music.
Yeah, she's not going to talk about that. She is. She is an educational psychologist and works for Somerset. So that's what her role is. On the 21st of May, we've got The Power of Music, Supporting Children's Wellbeing, and that's Take Art. We've got Jenny here this evening from Take Art, and we've got Jane Parker and Rosie Walton. Rosie Walton is an early years music specialist, and she's passionate about supporting and developing children's musicality, creativity and a sense of self through responsive music making. And I'm sure many of you know of Jane. She comes with a wealth of experience as an early years music specialist, and a lot of her work is focused. She's the Take Art's early years music lead. I'm sure many of you have seen her on various training sessions, or she's even worked within your settings on various Take Art projects. And then last but not least, we have Sonia Mainstone Cotton. Some of you may be familiar with her. She's written various books around children's wellbeing, and she's relatively local. She lives and works in Bath, and she's a nurture consultant working with 3- and 4-year-old children who have social, emotional and mental health needs. And so she's very, very passionate about supporting children in their early years with their well-being. So she's going to offer practical ways to support our well-being and children's well-being, and she'll be sharing us lots of practical ways and offering that menu of thoughts and ideas to take away. And she's actually said that if you come along, you need to bring some hand cream and something tasty to eat, a few little nuts or chocolate. So I'm not sure what that's going to involve, but obviously that will all be in the booking information. So that'll be very interesting to what the hand cream and chocolate and nuts involve. So like I've said, the booking details will be available soon. And that's it. Thank you. I'm not sure if there's any other questions. I will have a look and type them in.
Yeah,
thank
Nikki's
you.
Working our way through them in the chat.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Jo. All right, I'm handing over to Beth or Catherine. Let's see who's got their camera on.
It's me first, and Catherine will go afterwards. But we're kind of doing it jointly, so everyone gets to see a bit of each of us, really, I guess. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, perfect. Sorry, I've had some problems with my laptop today. So hello, thank you for letting us join along. Catherine and I here to discuss and just share some information with you in relation to safeguarding updates. So next slide, please. And we just thought we'd share with you again our contact details. It's great that so many of you are getting in touch with us now directly, which is fab. So we've got Catherine's email address and mine, and just the areas that we cover. And if you're not sure, just underneath there, we've got an education safeguarding lead team, which will email address that reaches both of us as well. But either way, if Catherine's not in for some reason, I'll cover her, and if I'm not in for some reason, she'll cover me. But we are both full time, and it's not time only. We're all throughout the year. So our out of office and emails are always updated to make sure that you know exactly how you can contact one or other of us. So obviously we've got the early years DSL briefings. This is really good news. As requested by you, we finally have a date to receive the safeguarding updates. This is for designated safeguarding leads of early years specifically. You mentioned that's what you wanted. You wanted to be separate from sort of school settings to make it slightly more relevant to what you're doing, which is absolutely fine. So we've managed to put that together, and that's going to be happening on Thursday, the 25th of April, and that's between 7 and 7:45. It'll be about half an hour of a briefing from Catherine and I with relevant information, and then sort of 15 minutes or so of questions if you've got any. It will be via Teams. Again, overwhelming majority of people and settings wanted training and updates via Teams. I guess it's very, very handy for lots of people and takes away the time of travelling as well for everyone who's very busy. And for who is this for? So this is for everybody in early year settings. So it's for childminders, DSLs and DDSLs within all of your early year settings. So I will add a link shortly into the chat to show you, to send you a link to our web page, and our web page has lots of information in relation to safeguarding, obviously, but also it will give you access to the Teams briefing. So the DSL briefing will go live on the day. So if you're looking at it tomorrow, it may not be there. Well, it won't be there. I know it won't, because Dan needs to add it on. He's our business manager, business support. So he'll be adding that on. So if you don't see it, don't panic. It will be there closer to the time, and it will be live on the day. So if you're trying to join it for any reason beforehand, you won't be able to until the time that the meeting actually starts. But if there's any questions, then obviously contact one of us in relation to that. So next slide, please. And this is just a reminder that any safeguarding complaints or concerns that come into county, maybe sometimes from Ofsted, sometimes from parents directly, they do happen. Catherine and I deal with these on a weekly basis for all settings, actually, in education settings as well as early years settings. So please know, it was really just to share with you again that we do investigate these safeguarding complaints and concerns in relation to all providers in this area, and it is a supportive process, and we work with you to understand what has happened, to identify any potential learning points, and be assured that safeguarding practices and processes are effective. We are absolutely not there to hit anyone with any big sticks. Sometimes things happen, there's often differences of what has occurred, and so we can work with you together to understand better what may have happened. If something hasn't gone particularly well, then we can support you with ensuring that wouldn't happen again, or best practices around it. Very often, you know, you can identify your own practices or improve your own practices before it even comes to us. But it's just that extra reassurance for you to know that we work with you on these scenarios and report back to Ofsted with the information together. So it's nothing to be afraid of and nothing to be worried of. If you get an email from us explaining that there's been some kind of complaint, please don't let your stomach turn and your heart sink. We can work on it together, and we will be available to talk it through at any point if you want to. That has happened with several people and various settings, and it will continue to happen always, but please be reassured that it's a supportive process, and Catherine and I are there to help you through it. Okay, and I think this is over to Catherine.
Thank you. Brilliant. So I'm just waiting to go live. So we just wanted to share this. This did go out in the recent bulletin, but it's a question that we get asked frequently, and it is specifically around school-based providers, but we just wanted to flag it up because it's taken us a long time to get clarity on this as well from Ofsted. So we're aware if it takes us a long time for that clarity, then we'll have settings that don't have that clarity. So you'll be aware that the EYFS statutory framework states that childminders and registered providers must notify Ofsted, their CMA or the agency or the provider of the COPD is registered of any serious accident, illness, or injury to or death of a child while in their care, and then what actions you've taken. The confusion comes around whether a school-based provider needs to notify Ofsted about accidents and injuries. So we've got that clarity, and essentially, if it is if you are on a school site but you're a private provider, then you do need to register. You do have registration with Ofsted, so you do need to notify them. If you are an early years provision that's run by the school, but you have children over the age of 2, so only over the age of 2, then you do not require to notify you and to have that registration with Ofsted, and so you don't need to notify them. And you just follow the school's process of reporting accident and health and safety instances. But if you have an early years provision which caters for children under 2, that's run directly by the school, then your setting will require registration, so you do need to notify Ofsted of accidents and injuries. So hopefully you'll get these slides and you'll just have that to refer to. It was in the bulletin as well, but just in case there's any doubt, we just wanted to share that with you all. Thanks, Sally. So I just want to share with you what's coming up, what we're developing. So we're also developing some bite-sized learning online. Ours is going to be 5 to 10 minutes for each one, but let us know if you've got any topics specifically relating to safeguarding policy and practice that you would like us to cover. The first two that we're doing is around recording concerns, so how staff record concerns, the types of language you would use when you're recording a concern, types of questions that should be on the forms and things like that. And we do have example and template documents for you to use on our website for those already. And we'll also be doing one on managing allegations, as that's frequently coming up when we're speaking to settings. So there are two initial ones that we're developing, but if you've got any other specific safeguarding topics that you think actually 5-10 minutes that I could share with my staff, that would be really helpful, then do let us know, and we'll develop those. We're developing the early years safeguarding audit. This will launch on the 25th of April at the DSL briefing. We are doing a separate audit for settings and childminders, and it's really intended to be that reflective tool for you to use to review your policies and practices, and identify perhaps areas of strength, but equally areas where you might need some further support or need to strengthen your practice. It's not intended to highlight you're doing things wrong or anything like that. And we want to use that data to inform our training, DSL briefings, and actually how we can support you more as individual settings. So again, please don't worry, and we'll provide guidance with that and around completing of that. We're developing the safeguarding training offer and what that looks like. There's a lot of work going on at the moment with Skill and SSCP, Somerset Safeguarding Children's Partnership, and we have almost finalised some really clear flowcharts with the training requirements for childminders around safeguarding and the training requirements for settings around safeguarding. So I know sometimes it's where do I go? Where do I find this? How do I access this? So that will be really clear. And as I say, we're working with Skill and SSCP on the delivery of certain elements of that safeguarding training. Thanks, Ali. So just wanted to highlight to you, this is the Somerset Safeguarding Children's Partnership website. This is your go-to for looking onto safeguarding training, but also if you've got anything around managing allegations, anything to do with the LADO, or if you are looking at resolving professional differences, if you're wanting to raise a dispute around how perhaps an agency has managed a case, or you're not satisfied with an outcome or something, this is kind of your go-to page. So I just wanted to flag that with you. There's lots of protocols and useful links there. And then on the next slide, it just highlights a couple of their podcasts. They've done some really good podcasts. So if you're a podcast listener, then do check it out. They're half an hour long, and they are really, really useful. They've got lots and lots there, and they do updates when the new legislation comes out. So you can, if driving along, you can have a listen. Thanks, Ali. And they've also got a link tree there with the QR code that you can scan. They're on Twitter, they're on Facebook, they're on YouTube, but everything's in one place with that link tree. Okay. And finally, just sharing our page for you all, so you know what it looks like. So this is our page on Support Services for Education. The link is there for you to access it.
I've just added it in the chat as well, Catherine, so you know, and the link to SSCP has just been added in the chat as well.
Thank you. So there's lots of templates, policies, procedures, local and national. We will have, once the early years audit is up there, we'll have a specific early years audit section as well. And the early years DSL briefings, they'll have their own page with the recordings of the briefings available and all the resources that we reference within the briefing. So they're all there. If you haven't already signed up to SSE, I would really recommend you do that, because some of our resources are locked until you sign in, but it's a really simple process to do, and once you're in, there's loads of resources available to you. And that's everything from us, Ali.
There are a host of questions in the chat,
Oh,
so I will let you get on to. Do you know what? I am so relieved to have some clarity on that injury and incident thing, because that is something that has been driving me insane and I've never quite understood. So you have revolutionised my life if no one else's. So thank you for that. Okay, I'm passing over to Sarah now. Let me find a Sarah.
We'll answer some of the links in the chat if that's okay, because I know you're moving on. So I'm trying to get onto some of those questions in the chat. So we'll continue answering them in the chat.
Sarah, do you want to put your camera on so I can send you live?
Hello, my lovelies. Are we there? Am I live?
Yeah, we can hear you, Sarah.
Excellent. Hello. Hi, everybody. My name's Sarah Love. I'm the Service Manager for Education, Places and Strategy. I'm just going to run through a few updates. Not as exciting as what the curriculum and topic team have presented and safeguarding team, but you know, the basics. Thank you, Alison. So here we are. The funding rates have been published. We're one of the few local authorities that have actually published their rates before March, which is always a bonus. So these are the base rates. The base rates for the 0 to 1 year olds is £9.78. Obviously, this doesn't come into play until September 2024, when the new entitlement comes in. For 2 year olds, the base rate is £7.16, and for 3 and 4 year olds, £5.23. So the two-year-old rate for both disadvantaged and working families will include the additional supplement for disadvantage. So these are the base rates. Your individual rates should have come through the early years portal today, later on this afternoon, which will give you your specific hourly rate that is specific to you. The other thing I just wanted to highlight to you, we are looking at the possibility of changing the way that we pay the entitlement to settings, in particular to childminders. The guidance has suggested that we should be looking at monthly payments rather than the funding payments that we currently pay. We are looking at that, and we have put a consultation out through the portal and various different media representations, and the deadline for that is the 8th of March. So I would suggest to you that if you are interested in how and want to voice how you would like to be paid into the future, please engage with us on that consultation. Thank you, Ali. So again, we presented a couple of provider briefing sessions week before last, and there were some specific queries around the change of wording within the guidance around the provider agreement. Now, we are totally aware that the provider agreement needs to be updated. However, we have recently received the updates. We are absolutely aware that we need to include within the provider agreement the changes in the extended early years entitlement, and we are working on that to make sure that that comes into play. Now, I have to say that the actual baseline or the principles behind the early years entitlement remain the same. Therefore, we will not rewrite the provider agreement. What we will do as an addendum to the provider agreement to include the increased entitlement of the early years expansion. And there is some word changing, which was highlighted to us on a provider briefing around the fact that the voluntary element of the guidance has been removed, which opens up a whole new opportunity for providers to have those discussions with parents around additional services. However, the statement within the guidance clearly states what providers need to do in regards to those discussions, and it still remains, and I've highlighted the words there, it still remains which must be delivered completely free of charge. So it's about having those, it's giving providers more opportunity to have those discussions with parents about additional charges, but effectively it's about, you know, the entitlement should be delivered completely free of charge at the point of conception. Thank you, Ali. So what's happening in with the early years expansion? What happened there? What's happening with the early years entitlement expansion? We have received a number of expressions of interest from providers who would like to expand their provision, and the team are now working through those and will be in contact with you about looking at what that looks like and what you need from us and how we might support you to increase your operational delivery. So that's what we're looking at. We're looking at those expressions of interest, and obviously we are also matching that to the criteria that the DFE have provided around how we can support providers in increasing their capacity. We have also instigated and reinstigated, I should say, because we had done this in the past, reinstigated the fully funded recruitment adverts through Dillington Advertising, and I hope that that you have received that information. It should have come through the early years bulletin and also through your early years portal. We're also working very, very closely with Job Centre Plus, providing briefings regarding the expanded early years entitlement, but also about workforce recruitment. So, you know, talking about the potential of becoming a childminder and how you can get into the childcare sector. So lots of work the team have been working on in regards to that as well. Thank you, Alison. So the wraparound expansion, this is a big agenda from the government. It's starting, the rollout is starting now, with the thought process that there will be a full rollout in 2026 to provide childcare for every primary child between 8 and 6, 8 AM in the morning and 6 PM. So we are currently developing local authority plans for the programme. So we're looking at grants for training, we're looking at resources, we're looking at start-up costs. However, I will say that the government are very clear that the wraparound provision has to be self-financing, so there is no additional resource to subsidise the fees that are required to ensure viability of wraparound care other than the tax-free childcare. So what we're doing as a team, we are booked in to present to all the head teacher briefings in April and May to make to ensure that our schools are aware, that includes maintained schools and academies, are aware of what the agenda is and what support there is for those for that sector to be able to move this forward. We're working very much inclusively with colleagues and external specialists. So, for example, we're working very closely with SASP, Somerset Activity Sports Partnership, and HAF around how we can interlink and make sure this agenda is met using services that are already currently provided but might need to think outside of the box. We are also looking to work a piece of work around focusing on childminders who already offer the wraparound provision and look at how we can support this moving forward. We are very aware that childminders do an awful lot in regards to our wraparound provision. Excuse me. So that's me. I'm wrapping up quite quickly because I do appreciate the time, but I just wanted to add that there has lots of information in the media around funding and around grants, and I just wanted to let you know that we have, as in Somerset, have received a capital grant to support the expansion of early years and the wraparound childcare. Unfortunately, the grant has been given as a lump sum rather than early years and wraparound. The guidance has provided us with an 80-20 split, and 80% towards increasing early years and expansion, and 20% in regards to increasing wraparound care. So we haven't actually received that funding at this moment in time, and we have, as a local authority, need to work up a spending plan to be able to claw down that funding. So we are envisaging that will be a grant application process, and there will be a minimum and maximum amount that can be claimed. We've also received a revenue pot to support the early years expansion. It is this year, this financial year, and a relatively small pot. And we are currently in the process of working out, although we can carry it over to next year, but we are currently in the process of working out what that looks like in regards to grant aid in regards to the expansion of the early years entitlement. We are also going to receive a significant amount of money in regards to the wraparound revenue. However, that is not released till June and July of next year, and that is totally reliant on the spending plan that the local authority put together in regards to how that will work. So we are in a situation, and I apologise for not being able to be very much clearer around what the grant revenue and capital will be, but we are very much in a situation where we are working extremely hard to make sure that there is clarity on that, and as soon as we have the criteria, which we will work to in regards to the guidance that comes from the DFE, we will work to that guidance, and we will deliver that and portray that information as soon as we have got that sorted. But as I say, we're still waiting for significant guidance from the DFE around the criteria that is required for both of those capital and revenue grants, both for the early years expansion and the wraparound care agenda. What I will say is that you are more than happy. Please feel free to contact the Education Places team email if you require any further information, and if you are keen to expand and looking to expand or looking to review your operational delivery, please let us know. We're more than happy to provide you with sufficiency assessments. We're more than happy to provide you with the demand and supply data that we have been given from the DFE alongside the supply and demand that we hold data on ourselves, and we're all more than happy for you to contact us, and I will pop in the chat the Education Places email address if you have any queries or concerns. Thank you, Alison, unless there's any questions.
No, Julie has been working her way through them in the chat as we speak. She is beavering away. Thank you.
Very, very good star.
She is a star. Okay, I'm passing over to Rebecca.
Hello. Tell me when you can hear me, Ali.
We can hear you. We can hear you, great. And your face is just appearing as we speak.
Okay, thank you very much. Excuse me with my headphones on, it's a little bit noisy out here in my home. So I'm Rebecca Fisk, I'm the Early Years SEND Service Manager for in the inclusion teams in the council. So I'm just going to do a very quick couple of slides, and I apologise, I realise how full that slide looks, so I do apologise. So in the context of your expansion of childcare and the national agenda, I think it's really helpful that you have said to us in the consultations that went out to you regarding how to spend the 3% of the DSG funds and so on. You told us that your practitioners were lacking confidence in supporting children with SEND. Now, interestingly enough, today I've just had some data to say that last year the children with SEND was about 9.5% proportion of all the children by the time they got to the end of reception. So, and the year before it was 10% of children. So it is quite a lot of children in your setting who may still have SEND identified in the early years and still be known to be children with SEND at the end of the EYFS stage of learning. So one of the things that we're really lucky in Somerset is we have this opportunity to have this free training from Dingley's Promise, and it is funded by the Comic Relief. There are 32 local authorities involved with the Dingley's Promise offer, and we've reached 12% of our early years workforce so far. So that's quite a long way off reaching every provider in the settings who might not be feeling very confident. And we obviously need your help to do that, because we're trying to help you. Because every key person is responsible for that child's progress under the SEND Code of Practice. It's not the SENCO, it's the key person. So this is about confidence for all your staff, and the way that the modules work are fantastic. They're free, they're online, you can do bits in bite size. They do take a bit of time because they are in depth, they've got practical workbooks, and they really make sense. Now, we know from all those other local authorities, and they've reached over 13,000 learners, that 92% of those practitioners say just by doing the very first module, the Introduction to Inclusive Practice, they feel more confident to include children with SEND. So to me, that's a sort of win-win situation, because we know completely that you want to include your children with SEND, and you are doing your very best to deliver your best practice. So we hope that this will help you with the confidence around that. There are lots of other modules which actually apparently get even better as they go through, because they've had feedback. This is growing over the next 2 years. There'll be 10 modules in total. It's growing. Okay, so I suppose my question to you is to ask your staff or to ask yourselves in that self-evaluation bit, what percentage of your staff feel confident? And have a look at the online training offer. Please note the new link. The previous link had broken. So if you've been having some trouble, please don't give up, just persevere with it. And also, you may not know, and we're going to be signposting in the next news bulletin, there is a mark of achievement that Dingley's will give you when a certain percentage of staff have done a certain percentage of the modules, and you can have that, you know, on your website, you can have that in your window and all those other things, but you have to tell them when you think you've got there, because they don't know your percentage of staff, so you need to talk to them about that. So please take the opportunity whilst this is free for the next 2 years, and it's worth £50 per module per person. So if you wanted to do the sums on that for your staff, that might help you think and plan in how you might address your staff CPD around this. Thank you, Ali. Next slide. So the other thing that you will know of, because we've been sharing it widely, I hope you do, is that the Maisie meetings, which were multi-agency, identification and support in the early years. They were amazing meetings that had been in place for 20 years or so, were not working effectively to really meet the needs of children with complex needs. It doesn't mean that we're not working in a multi-agency way. We're still business as usual, but we do need your ideas and support, and we do need parents' ideas to tell us what you think we need to do next in Somerset. So there's 2 surveys. They close on the 11th of March. There's one that we ask you to get out to parents, especially parents where you know there's identified SEND, and others to get to your staff. So not just your SENCO, but actually all your staff completing it and saying what do they think works well or not well, and what needs to be better for children with complex needs. And we would take that engagement piece into our bits of work as we move forward with public health. So that's the health visiting teams and maternity teams, right through to paediatricians and speech and language therapists and OTs and all those partners we're working with around this piece of work. But we really want your voice. We can't come and talk to all of you individually, and we're sorry for all the extra surveys. Appreciate that that's quite tricky sometimes. However, that's our best way to reach you. And there's only a couple of questions on there, so it won't take you long. Thank you very much. That's me.
Thank you, Rebecca. Now I've got Claire and Emily here. I wonder who's starting us off. Oh, Claire's put her camera on, so I'm going to assume it's you, Claire, that I'm handing over to. I think you're on mute. You're still on mute.
Okay.
There you go.
Come on. Yeah. Thank you, Alison. Can everyone hear me okay? No.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yep, brilliant. Okay, so thank you for having me today. I'll be really brief because I know that you finish very shortly. My name's Claire Foster and I'm part of the Big Brush Club. So it's an NHS scheme for supervised toothbrushing. Our company's At Home Dental that runs it. So you may have been aware we've contacted most of the schools within the IMD of 1 to 6 to try and sign you up to be involved with the supervised toothbrushing programme. We're doing 2 cohorts in each school. So it'll be if you've got a reception and nursery class, a preschool and nursery class, it will be them and reception. Or if you don't have one of those, it's reception in year 1. So we always cover the 2 cohorts. And we'll be doing this contract for 2 to 3 years. We've got the contract for the whole of the Southwest. So we've been doing a phased delivery. We started with Devon and we've moved to different regions. And Somerset was our 2nd phase. So we're already at the stage of delivering stock and training all the schools. We've had an amazing uptake with it too. So we're really, really impressed. We've also got another supervised toothbrushing scheme, which is run as part of Somerset Council and Roderick's Dental. But Gemma unfortunately wasn't here today to be able to speak. She couldn't join in the meeting. So just to explain her scheme a little bit too, she's also offering fluoride varnish to nursery children, and she sees all the standalone nurseries. So the ones that we're not seeing, we're seeing ones with schools, she'll see the standalone. We both offer oral health education lessons. It's all completely fully funded. And so it'd be great if we could get as many schools on board as possible. Can I have the next slide, please? A little bit to everyone because it does feel really overwhelming. I understand, you know, it's such a busy job that you do with the children, but it can be done really effectively and quite simply as well. And it's just so important because it's so life-changing for these children. I know that a lot of people feel it's not the school's responsibility, it's the parents, but we really are in a dental crisis at the moment, and anything we can do to help can make a significant difference. So when it's done properly, it can only take 5 minutes. You can choose when you want to do it throughout the day. We just advise that they don't do it straight after eating. So they have to let the pH levels rest after eating. So we advise a good half an hour or so after they've had their meal. We provide all the equipment, all of the training. It's done really simply and effectively through webinars, and we always give you one-to-one support to get you involved in that. So we'll go for the next slide, please. So just some of the reasons why this is so important for us to do. You can see some of the statistics here. You know, it is really shocking when we see some of the statistics for Somerset as well is increasing during the epidemiology surveys. the decay rates with children and they don't have access to dentists. As we know, when you have decay, it can be quite significant, and it's one of the most common causes for hospitalizations for children to have general anaesthetics, to have teeth out. It's quite shocking, really, and obviously they miss a lot of school days due to dental appointments and things, and this is all completely preventable by just putting fluoride toothpaste on their teeth. Having that application daily can set them up for life, and it can really resolve a lot of the NHS dental crisis that we're currently in. Next slide, please. So as I said, we're across the southwest. We've got a couple more facilitators that have joined us since these pictures here, but we're delivering it in all regions. So Alicia, who's on the call today, I don't think she can put her camera on to join. I think she's not. I think she's a guest presenter. Don't know if she can, but Alicia's here and she's based in Yeovil. So she's able to go out there to the schools, give the one-to-one support, give them all the training they need. And we've had an excellent uptake. As I've said, we've got 114 schools participating, which is 71% of our goal, and that's increasing daily all the time. And as I said, these schools are from the IMD index of 1 to 6, so they're the most deprived schools in the area. And we're really hoping that eventually we'll be able to extend that to all schools and nurseries. We've already delivered 77 oral health education lessons, so if anyone's keen to have us out there and come and speak to their schools, please get in touch. We're very happy to come out and deliver those lessons to the children or to the parents, and training for the teachers. As I mentioned about the epidemiology as well, you can see the statistics here. The most recent one in 2022, you know, these are when the dentists go in and view it, we're talking about active decay in their teeth. So they're looking at, for example, the West Somerset Taunton saw 246 children, and 26% of those had active decay in their mouths, which is quite shocking, really. It's quite significant. Next slide, please. So I won't go into this too much because I understand we're running out of time, but yeah, that was just explaining the pH levels and the acid attack on teeth, that we try and say it's the frequency of sugar that's the problem. So it's the amount of sugar that they're having, how often they're having it throughout the day, that causes the problem there. And I know at schools they give out raisins as part of the fruit things. Raisins are one of the worst things that children could be eating. They get stuck in the teeth and they cause an immense amount of decay. And just be aware of even sugar-free juice, because even that contains sugar. Have the next slide, please. And that just explains what happens in the acid attack. So we'll go to the next slide. So I'll just keep it short for you, running out of time. And with the supervised toothbrushing, you can see some pictures here of how it can work. We've seen it. It's been rolled out in Devon under the pilot scheme for the last 4 years, and we've seen it run very successfully throughout there. So we're really keen to promote it nationally eventually. As you can see, they just can sit in little circles. We advise actually the best place is on a desk. So if they do drop the toothbrush, they're able to pick it up and clean it, reuse it rather than on the floor. But yes, it is very effective and simple to do. Next slide, please. This is about the fluoride varnish scheme that Roderick's Dental are doing. It's just a little update there. So that they're keen to get more and more children involved. It's for the 3 and 4 year olds in those standalone nurseries. They do all nurseries for the fluoride varnish, sorry, and for the supervised toothbrushing, they just do the standalone nurseries. You can see they've already done 771 children on the first application of fluoride and another 318 on the second application, and that's increasing regularly too. So if any nurseries would like to be signed up through Roderick's, we'll be very happy to put you in touch with them. They also offer oral health talks to nurseries as well, and there's a link on there for their fluoride varnish scheme. Next slide, please. So then just about us again, just closing it, so the supervised toothbrushing, we're really keen to get you all involved. I've got plenty of time to talk to you about it, send facilitators out to give the talk, so please do get in touch, do consider doing this. It really is life-changing. please check out our website. It's full of resources as well that you can use in class, lots of links to share with parents. We've also got a link here to our agreement form if you do want to sign up and get involved at all. We probably don't have time for questions, but if anybody does want to get in touch with me, we can pass out
questions in the chat. So
I don't know if I can see the chat. Let's have a look. So I'm just
you should be able to, if you click on published, you should be able to see them. So if you wouldn't mind clicking through and answering any of those, that would be amazing. Thank you so much.
Yes,
that's very kind of you. Okay, and now we are at the end. However, Jenny is so lovely, and Jenny, I know you can talk super fast, so I'm going to hand over to you because it wouldn't be the same without having a bit of take heart. There you are live.
Oh, bless you. Thank you so much. And yes, I won't keep you long. I just wanted to say, really on behalf of Take Heart, thank you to everybody for the support that you've given some of our early years projects over the last couple of years. Now, it sounds like we're going away, but we're not. It's what I want to tell you about is that the Making Believing conference, the Making Believing project is coming to an end. It's done all its delivery, so we've been out to lots of settings across Somerset, more in Derby, more in Surrey as well, but obviously tonight Somerset is really important. And we really want to thank you for the enthusiasm and the energy that you've brought into our projects. Can I have the next slide, please, Ali? So I wanted to tell you about this final event for the Making Believing project. It is a conference, and it is a day where we want delegates to come along, feel energised, feel enthused, and to increase their toolkit on how to foster creativity within early years for both themselves and for the children they work with. Now, unfortunately, this conference is taking place in Derby because our partner Derby Theatre is able to host it. We were hoping to do something equivalent in Somerset, but it just has not been possible. But there is an invite out to all of you that if you can come along and free yourselves up for the day on Monday the 25th of March, we would love to see you there. It should be a beautiful day. We've got our chief researcher on the Making and Believing project, plus another guest speaker giving wonderful presentations. Some of our artists that many of you would have met coming into your settings will be there giving practical workshops. So I just wanted to let you know about that before you go away tonight and open the bottle of wine or put on the kettle or whatever you're going to be doing after this. And just to say, next steps for Take Heart in early years, well, Soundwaves project is still running, so that is still going. That will be going into next year. But we are also putting together a funding bid at the moment, which is a cross art form project again. And it's all about the voice of the child. And we want to work with 2 to 4 year olds within settings for this project. So this is a little bit of a very, very early call out that if any settings are potentially interested in hooking up with us and being part of a future project with us, please do get in touch. I have put my email in the chat, and if you give the next slide, please, Ali, that will give our email contact addresses, etc. So that was a very quick whistle stop. Hello, thank you. Join us if you can, and get in touch if you're interested in doing something in the future. So thank you, guys. Have a good evening, all of you.
Thank you, Jenny. Thank you so much. And thank everyone for joining us this evening. Sorry we've overrun by a few minutes, but we really hope you found this useful and informative. And we really look forward to seeing you at our future events. Thank you so much for your attendance, and goodbye.